What's happening, everybody? Justin, Bridgewater's finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter, fueled as always by the great folks at NerdTees. And here we are. Grey Cup 106. The final game of the 2018 CFL season. We're finally here. This episode is going to be a little bit different. Obviously, it's going to be shorter. It's the last one of the season. There's only one game to talk about. And I have no notes. I have nothing. Usually I have a couple of sheets of notes here, you know, game notes, statistics, things like that. And I'm very much a statistics guy, but I'm just not doing it for this game. It's the championship game. It's the last game of the season. It's a rematch of a Grey Cup from a couple of years ago. I'm just siphoning this thing down to one question. Who's going to win? I had a crummy week last week. I only went, I think, 1-5 in the CFL. I think I got a total in the East final right, maybe. I think that might have been it. I think that was it. I think I got one total right, and the rest of them were garbage. So I apologize for my garbage picks from last week. I tried to run with the underdogs. The favorites won the games, I guess, as they're supposed to. And basically, our Grey Cup matchup is as it should be. It's the Ottawa REDBLACKS, the #1 team in the East, the Calgary Stampeders, the #1 team in the West, essentially the #1 team in the CFL for the entirety of the 2010s. They were here last year. They lost that game. They were here the year before that. They lost that game too, to the REDBLACKS. They were here in Grey Cup 102. They won that game. They were in Grey Cup 100. They didn't win that one. So given how dominant the Calgary Stampeders have been over the last, basically, the back half of the 2010s, and even a little bit earlier than that, they've only got one Grey Cup to show for 4 entries. Before I give my pick for the 106th Grey Cup, I got to do a couple of things. The first thing we're going to do, our due diligence, nerdtees.ca, incredible company, small business tea company in Woodstock, Ontario, Canada, run by a lovely, lovely lady named Ruby. Her tea blends are fantastic. Nerdtees.ca, promo code is BWFinest, and that's going to save you 15% at checkout. Today's blend is one of my personal favorites. It's watermelon. It's an oolong tea. It smells fantastic. It's good hot. It's good cold. Very tasty. Great watermelon flavor. It's, if not my favorite, it's easily top 2. Like, the watermelon blend is tremendous. Try some for yourself through nerdtees.ca. Once again, promo code's BWFinest. Save that 15%. Find yourself something to love. Find someone you love something to love. Maybe for Christmas, I'm just saying. You can do that on nerdtees.ca. Second thing I want to do before I make the pick for the 106th Grey Cup is to say thank you. Thank you for the people that are watching this. Thank you to my boys in the CFL group chat on Twitter. And, you know, this was something that I had never done before. I had never gone to, you know, full-length videos to talk about the CFL. CFL picks were always just an afterthought on my NFL show. I'd never really gone deep dive, never really gone in depth on CFL games. And I thought, you know what? I need more content. I'm trying to get my YouTube partnership back. I need that, so why not? Let's go. Let's dive into CFL. And it was Millhouse. It was Millhouse who I think was the first one that stumbled on me, threw me a couple of DMs on Twitter, said, hey, we're in this chat. Do you want to join up? I said, yeah, sure, why not? And it introduced me to awesome people. First of all, awesome cappers, people that made me better at this. And it just introduced me to a bunch of awesome people. Just really, really, really nice guys, fun people to talk to. They talk shop. The fact that not only did the CFL provide me an avenue to have more content on this channel for you and for me, it introduced me to great people. And nothing that did those things could possibly ever be bad. And I know I've mentioned it before. I will be doing this again next year. No question about it. You couldn't keep me away. Wild horses, as the country song used to say, could not keep me away from making CFL videos next season and in seasons past. So look, if you've contributed to this, even in a really small way, thank you. And I think before I give the pick for the game, I also just want to, I'm going to be parroting and echoing a bunch of people in saying this, but I just want to take 2 seconds to say Jonathan Rose is an idiot. And if you are one of the few who are still defending Jonathan Rose in any way, I can't possibly imagine what's going through your brain. So if you didn't watch the East Final, Jonathan Rose, who is a defensive back for Ottawa, rode a player out of bounds, threw him down aggressively out of bounds, making a tackle. It was an unnecessary tackle to begin with, and I think that drew a flag anyway. And some referees had come in because they're like, okay, you know, something's going to happen here. Jonathan Rose is like trying to fight people on the sidelines. It's ridiculous. And he grabs an official, pushes him into a pile of humanity, which was behind him, as he's attempting to fight people on the Hamilton bench. And he got suspended. He's going to be suspended for this game. He's not going to get the opportunity to play in the Grey Cup. And it's a small percentage of people who are actually defending him by saying like, oh, this punishment is too severe. You intentionally laid hands on an official, shoved him into an area of conflict while attempting to fight other people. So how that's not a reasonable response to that, I can't understand what's going on in your brain hole. Playing in the Grey Cup is a privilege, and if you abuse that privilege, you don't get to have it anymore. All right, enough of that garbage. Grey Cup, 106th Grey Cup, Calgary, Ottawa. Who's going to win the game? Again, I'm just going gut. I'm literally just going gut on this one. And if I look at the games from last week, I don't necessarily think it did Ottawa any favors. The fact that they totally blew Hamilton out of the water in that game. I think they beat them by 19. The reality of that football game was after the first quarter, that game was probably not in doubt. Certainly by halftime, everybody was like, okay, wrapped up, like it's done, on to the Grey Cup. Meanwhile, Calgary had to dogfight to win their game. I think they won the game by 5 or something like that. Like they had to fight to win that game. That game was still in doubt into the fourth quarter. And I think for a team that came into that game off of a bye, not having had to play in the first round of the playoffs, I think that does Calgary good because, again, it's what I talked about earlier in the playoffs. It's live rounds. You look at the Ottawa REDBLACKS, they've played less than one half of true competitive in-doubt football in the last 3 weeks. Whereas Calgary, at the very least, had to win in the last week of the regular season in order to get the home field advantage and had to win a highly competitive game last week. In terms of the teams being battle-tested, if you put any stock in that whatsoever, Calgary has a significant edge in that area. This is an excellent quarterback matchup, Levi Mitchell and Trevor Harris. It's two guys that I've talked the most smack on all season because the expectation is for them to be better than I feel in some areas they have been. Trevor Harris has been incredibly efficient, was incredibly efficient in that game, had obviously one of the games of the ages for the CFL, certainly in terms of playoffs, but just in general. And you got Levi Mitchell, who, as inefficient as he has been at times, the touchdown numbers, man, it's points on the board. That's what wins football games. So I'm really looking forward to this quarterback matchup. But what I genuinely feel about this game is that there is one team that has a defense capable of winning this football game, at least the way that they've been playing of late, and that's the Calgary Stampeders. You know, you look at Ottawa in that game last week against Hamilton, sure, they were, heavily out front at halftime, so probably geared down to, 70%. Still gave up 29 points, I believe it was 29 points, to a team that was missing, like, a large chunk of their best playmakers. And I feel like there's only one defense on the field that could keep the opposite team, below 20. And to me, that's Calgary. Therefore, Grey Cup 106... I'm giving it to the Calgary Stampeders. We're going to take Calgary in Edmonton, game being played in Edmonton, so obviously you got the Alberta connection there. Basically a home game for Calgary. We're going to take the Calgary Stampeders in Edmonton to beat the Ottawa REDBLACKS and win the 106th Grey Cup. On the line, the Stamps are a 4-point favorite. Obviously not at home on a neutral field, but Stamps are a 4-point favorite. I think you got to take that. I could very easily see this game being like a 25-20 or a 20-15 or something like that. 4 points, I think it's a comfortable cover for Calgary. So let's take the Stamps -4. Total in the game is 53 points. I don't think this game sniffs 50. Again, 25-20, 20-15. I think that's a pretty comfortable final score in this one. So we're going to stick under on it pretty strongly. We're going to go under 53 points in Calgary, Ottawa. Calgary wins the Grey Cup. All right, folks, that's it. My hands are up. The CFL season will be done. On Sunday, the only place you need to be is parked in front of your television, not watching that American stuff, although happy Thanksgiving today to my American listeners. Not watching that American stuff. Plunked watching TSN. If you're in the States, I think it's going to be on ESPN2. This is the game to watch. It's a championship game. It is no different than a Game 7 in the World Series, a Game 7 in the Stanley Cup Final. It's no different than the Super Bowl. It's the Canadian version of the Super Bowl. Much more quaint, but it's the Canadian version of the Super Bowl. I've got the Stampeders winning the Grey Cup. I've got the Stampeders covering -4. I've got the game staying under 53 total points in a classic Canadian football matchup. That's it for me. Justin, Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter, fueled as always by the great folks at Nerd Tees. Once again, thank you so much. Even if you've only watched one video this season, if this is the only video you've watched this season, thank you. Thank you very much. We will see you again next season.